Why Monday morning for that data release?
Hi, Meg. Thanks for having me on. So the company is, as a public company, constantly monitoring when it has information that it deems material to share with the public. And that determination was made over the weekend that we should do so on Monday morning. And so we reported interim results that were generated with our collaborators at NIAID, which is part of the NIH. And what we put out was the extent of the data that we had available. It reported on antibodies across 45 subjects that were tested, all of which produced antibodies, and a subset, 8, 4 groups in 2 cohorts, all of whom have developed neutralizing antibodies. That's the data we had. That's the data we shared.
So I want to ask you about, that's the data you had, because one of the people quoted in the Stat News story was a Yale vaccine researcher, Jack Rose, who said, quote, "My guess is that the numbers are marginal, or they would say more." Did you have more information and only report what looked good? Did you have numbers that were marginal, as this person suggests?
Meg, look, Moderna is a company that is not only trying to develop 15 different drugs and vaccines, but also has engaged in a public health crisis. Like many other major pharmaceutical companies, we take what we do very seriously. We would have not put out only some of the data to make anything look any different than the reality. And in fact, more importantly, not only is our scientific credibility very important to us, but the NIAID and the NIH, I think, whose credibility cannot be challenged by any experts or researchers, has had every ability and contributed to how we said what we said and the extent that we said, because of the fact that they are ultimately responsible for publishing this data, presenting this data in its full, which we expect to happen in sometime soon. So I think we recognize that there's so much attention on this matter that there are many folks who are professing expertise and guessing on what we may or may not have. That's not very useful to a world that is looking for some news that they can interpret, only because as a public company, it's very difficult for us to respond to expert guesses as to what we do and don't have. And so I would simply urge the public to pay attention to what we say. We stand by what we say. And as more is said, I think that some of these guesses will be clarified for what they are.
Noubar, it's Kelly here back in the studio. What most people who I've spoken to are focused on is not so much just the results of that study, but the timing of the stock sale that evening and the fact that the CEO has been a consistent seller of Moderna stock. Is there a reason why he's not been more of a buyer of Moderna? And the timing seems explicitly tied to the fact that the shares jumped in value, which is fine. I mean, that's the whole point. And obviously the whole market is excited by the prospect of this being a cure. But should investors in Moderna expect more of this, that any positive announcements will be followed by more stock issuance? And what should they make of the CEO's behavior?
You packed several questions into one. Let me see if I can address them in the brief time that we have. First, the timing of the stock sale was a function of the data and what it suggested to us as a company and the urgency we felt based on the data that we had to move even more quickly than we have been moving already. Moderna is a recently public company, and the resources that we have so far deployed towards this have been measured. Certainly, we've had some assistance from government funding through BARDA. But we felt as a company, following obtaining the results, which just occurred, that it was prudent for us to add to our resources and invest directly from our balance sheet into accelerating the preparedness we have to be able to produce large volumes of the vaccine. Look, the reality is that we don't yet know if we will be able to show a safe, effective vaccine that can be licensed for distribution. But the day that we do, we're going to wish that 6 months earlier we had made the very investments we've sought the resources to be able to make. So we feel a sense of urgency and obligation to do this. That's why we did it. As for your questions around stock sales, look, there's a background context. The biotech industry has hundreds of companies, and many of the management teams, including ours, have programmed selling that occurs periodically. All of it is disclosed, and there's nothing unusual that has gone on. And tying these things to each other, I think, is fine to do, but they have really nothing to do with each other. The reality is the company sought resources to be able to respond to the obligation and opportunity it sees, and we hope that it will be we will be vindicated in having made that decision.
Noubar, it's Meg Terrell again. In the short time we have left, I just want to ask you about Moderna's approach to whether the company or any company working on a treatment or vaccine for this pandemic should make a profit off of it. Bigger companies like Johnson & Johnson have said this is a non-profit endeavor for them. Gilead is donating the first set of doses of its remdesivir. Pfizer has said it's not necessarily a money-making endeavor, but Moderna is a smaller company, and this would be your first product to make it to market. Do you believe and do you expect, if it's successful, you will make a profit?
Meg, look, we have not commented on this because everything we've been doing has been to, as rapidly and as safely, complete the only race that matters, which is a race against this virus. Look, a lot is said, and I'll answer your question, but a lot's being said around who's going to win a race or how many entrants there are. Apparently, there's 100 vaccine makers. 8-10 of them are now in the clinic. As far as we're concerned, we've consistently said that we are racing in our own lane. We want to finish the race in our own lane. And if we get over the finish line, the only thing we want to do is deliver the quantity of vaccine that we're able to produce. That's our entire focus. So we are not thinking about a profit as a motivation here. Certainly, as a company, we will look at the value of what we're doing and try to actually reflect that in what we do. But we recognize this is a pandemic. This is a very urgent situation. And like others, we're focused on getting the vaccine made and not on a profit motive for doing so. That's as far as we're able to comment today. There's a lot of unknowns out there. By the way, this is a U.S. issue. This is a worldwide issue. We are looking and making plans to prepare to produce the vaccine for worldwide distribution. And we're working with many partners to be able to do that. That's our current focus.
Well, and I know you've put that goal out there for 1 billion doses per year potentially, but your chief medical officer, Tal Zaks, also said on Monday that at the beginning, the demand is going to be greater than the supply. How much do you expect to have at the beginning, and who's going to get those doses?
We are increasing that number as we speak by virtue of the resources that we've obtained. We are also hoping and looking forward to additional resources as we go forward in order to be able to get to that 1 billion dose per year number. It will be a heroic effort, and it will be a collaborative effort between governments, other private entities, whether they're foundations or companies, and ourselves and our shareholders, first and foremost, who believe that this is something that we really need to be able to do. Look, I heard what Tal said, and he's not only right at the beginning, he'll be right at the end, in the sense that I think no matter how many of these vaccines actually make it over the finish line, we will still be constrained by the supply. A lot of numbers are being thrown out, but these are just estimates. In terms of who will get this, we will work with the authorities and the governments that we're collaborating with to be able to make sure that the vaccine is appropriately distributed. As a company, as a private sector player, we very much rely on the public health authorities and our collaborators at NIH and NIAID, as well as other agencies, to guide us in that. And from day one, I think that Dr. Fauci, who's collaborated with us, and many others at BARDA and elsewhere know that this is a company that takes its responsibility seriously and recognizes that there are some things we can do well: design, develop, test, and communicate results. And there are some things that is beyond what the company can do, and that pertains to who gets it in what order. We will make as much supply as possible, as humanly possible, safely available, and then it will be up to our collaborators.
Well, Noubar, we really appreciate you being here with us today. And of course, we hope that the vaccine development goes well in the further stages that are required to prove that it works, and of course, that it's safe. Thanks for being here.